In this world lives powerful entities named Eldritch God, strong enough to make a human go crazy just by touching them. Linz, an otherworldly traveler, has lived for millions of years, mastering the supreme law of the world and becoming a walking encyclopedia. However, he still never understood one thing, which is why he is the only one who was immortal. In order to deal with the evil gods, time travelers were summoned from Earth, but sadly, all of Linz's fellow travelers became ugly old geezers and eventually passed away. This resulted in Linz establishing the Shrine of Reality to bury all his friends. In the present time, Linz decides to do a summoning ritual and says a bunch of bullshit, which results in a weird-looking gate appearing. Linz lets it know that he only has one wish, that is for him to finally have some pleasurable action in his life. Hearing this statement makes the gate flustered, and Linz continues to ask the gate to marry him. The gate replies that it is an eldritch god, and such mockery could be punished. However, Linz reassures the gate that he is serious and wants to marry her. Nonetheless, the girl inside the gate tells him to quit repeating himself, telling him to get ready for messing with an eldritch. But Linz stays persistent and makes sure that the god inside the gate is a woman. Furthermore, he has figured that her kind of eldritch is peerless in the tentacle department, making her even more confused. However, the main reason he wants to marry her is because she is an immortal being just like him, and has spent several years learning what it takes to summon her. At this point, he is willing to do whatever it takes to have a baddie wife by his side. Hearing that he is willing to do whatever it takes, she opens the gate and steps out, agreeing to marry his lonely ass. Just as he holds her hands, Sinua finally gets hit by reality and takes a step back, regretting her decision to agree to marry someone she just met. However, she decides to stay hard and asks Linz if he has any requests now that they're married. Linz instantly replies, wanting to break some beds with her. Surprisingly, she also seems to like the idea, as her favorite thing is bearing children. Sinua further says that if he wants to get kids out of this marriage, they can start performing the deed right away. But Linz finds it a bit weird doing that stuff in a graveyard, to which Sinua replies that she makes any kind of child he wants appear, promising to be fast and gentle. This makes Linz a bit confused, and he asks if she is talking about conceiving children, to which she agrees. She further informs him that as a mother goddess, she has the power to conceive all progeny and give him all the kids he wants. Linz lets out a sigh of dissatisfaction, saying that he had some other plans in mind. All he wants to do is showcase his burning love for Sinua. This makes Sinua as red as a baboon's butt, and she runs away screaming, telling Sinua that this sort of intimacy is not acceptable. But he doesn't want to give up and tells Sinua that they should go all the way. Meanwhile, at Brood Palace, two other Eldritch are watching Linz trying to riz Sinua, and she can't believe that Sinua really went to meet with such a loner. She can't believe that Sinua will now be speaking about performing plot with a man she just met. The other guy tells Lila that Sinua might have her own motives, as Linz is really powerful. Lila argues that all she sees is a worthless perv, but the guy elaborates that the Eldritch War is still not over and Linz might have what it takes to decide the ultimate victory. Sinua aspires to defeat the other Eldritch and become the new creator. However, the sight of Linz impregnating Sinua doesn't sit right with Lila, and she can't approve of Linz at all. In the end, she takes it upon herself to verify whether he is good enough for Sinua or not. Elsewhere, Sinua realizes that the married couple are supposed to perform the deed, wondering if she's really going to do the stuff she has only read about. Just then, she notices the portal between Linz's place and the Brood, realizing that the others heard everything that happened. This results in her asking Linz to hold off the talk, as she needs to head back and explain everything to her kinsfolk. Linz questions if they can go back together, but Sinua refuses, saying that it will only take a second. Before she leaves, Linz grabs her hair and gives it a kiss, which somehow turns her on. Linz further says that he'll get lonely if his wife is out for long, and she runs away, agreeing to be back before he knows it. After she leaves, Linz thinks about how his heart suffers violent pain after approaching the Eldritch, reminding him that he'll never go back to Earth until the Eldritch are eliminated. After 90 million years, Sinua returns to the Brood, which is a roundtable conference held after 1500 years of dormancy. An Eldritch god named Rujin questions the reason they are all called together, and Clara slams the table, saying that they could expect an after-party. Nea remains silent, while Saman mentions that they can expect something interesting. The two little squeaky things named Atos and Ivy are also present at the table. Beru lets Sinua know that Rujin asked her a question, and she replies by informing all of them that she married a human being. Saemin smiles, saying that it's quite fascinating news, and Ryujin questions if she wants to invite them to the ceremony. Atos struggles to convey his message, and Clara interprets for him, telling Sinua that he is asking why she told this to her mutual enemies. Sinua replies that she will be leaving the brood and entering the world to live with her husband, which makes Nea question if she's trying to end the war. Back at the Shrine of Reality, Lins desperately waits for his baddie wife to return and suddenly begins seeing illusions of his late friend. That friend mentions how he has been dead for so long that Lins doesn't even remember his face. Lins replies that it's already 95 million years. At the same time, a girl with giant honkers appears, asking if Lins remembers her. Lins instantly remembers those two big things and recognizes her as Estia, which comes to her as a surprise. He then lets both of them know about him leaving the Shrine of Reality and how he is getting married to someone. Furthermore, he asks them for forgiveness as he can't bring them to his wedding before the extinction of Eldritch. Meanwhile, Sinua asks everyone to join the wedding and let the Eldritch War end. Lins further tells his imaginary friends about his plan to get married in the Kingdom of Phyloxy, and one of his friends remembers it being the country he established. However, Lins remembers it as the place where both of them lost their lives. Nonetheless, he plans to eliminate the fifth sinister god and reclaim the hope of bringing his friends back home. Elsewhere, Nea, the fifth sinister god, asks Sinua about the wedding location, to which she replies that they are aiming for a place convenient for everyone to participate. Nea asks them to come to Phyloxy, as she'll definitely be there at Sinua's wedding. Some time later, the two of them arrive at the Phyloxy Kingdom and visit the Treaty Church, where everyone registers for marriage. Just then, a sister of the church appears, introducing herself as Maria, asking how she can assist them. Lins holds Sinua's hands and lets her know that they are a newly married couple and want to officially register their marriage. Maria is surprised by them calling themselves a married couple without the official registration and asks them to follow her. According to her, it'll be up to the jury to confirm whether they are eligible or not. Lins informs Sinua that the concept of marriage is held in high regard in the Phyloxy Kingdom, which makes her question how he is so knowledgeable about this stuff, and he lets her know that it was his friend who founded the church in the first place. Eventually, the two of them appear in front of the jury, and one of them asks Lins about the amount of supreme drip he possesses. Lins replies that he never had a need for money and is completely broke. Sinua agrees, saying that she was never in a situation when money was required. The girl wonders if they have some valuable assets that provide them with a worry-free life. Lins lets them know that he has a house, and Sinua mentions that she has been there. The man then asks the two of them about their house, and Sinua replies that it's a quiet place where one can see the stars, making the girl wonder if the roof is designed with transparent features. Sinua further adds that the view is truly vast and the gentle breeze flowing feels very comfortable. Maria, realizing that it's an open-air house, asks them about things near their house. Sinua replies that there are a ton of flowers around the house along with some tombstones. The man can't believe this bullshit and asks how Lins bagged such a hot wife. Sinua continues, saying that the tombstones are important to Lins, and as his wife, she cherishes them just like he does. Hearing everything makes the girl realize that Sinua might be getting deceived and asks Sinua about how long she has known Lins. Sinua lets her know that she met him yesterday, which results in her refusing to accept this marriage. Furthermore, she reminds Maria about the incidents involving women by cult followers of evil deity, making Lins wonder if she is suspicious of him as well. She then tells Maria that Lins could be a suspect, but Maria argues that if he was truly a member of the Flames cult, he wouldn't have a sausage. This results in Sinua asking Maria to give her details about the cult. She begins going with the flow and almost reveals her identity, making the girl question who Sinua truly is. Luckily, she realizes the mistake she was about to make and shuts her mouth. Just when she thinks that her identity might be exposed, Lins comes in clutch and calls it a misunderstanding, which relieves Sinua, as if they were exposed, she would have been forced to silence them all. Following that, Lins says that Sinua is a malevolent deity, and hearing this statement, Sinua prepares to use her powers and eliminate them all. However, what Lins means is that Sinua is a malevolent deity hunter. He tells them a made-up story about Sinua witnessing the crimes committed by the cultists and the people dear to her being slayed by their hands. This brings tears to Maria's eyes, and before he can continue any further, Sinua shuts him down, telling others that it is exactly as Linz says. Linz then tells Sinew that her hair is actually tickling his face, embarrassing her as she backs off, telling Linz that she is not embarrassed at all. Maria ends up buying this made-up story and explains that the flame cult worships a self-proclaimed chaotic flame king. Apparently, the king has an intense fondness for baddies and wishes to create a harem for himself. The king uses all sorts of methods to make young girls believe in the flame king and ultimately forces them to be scared of the opposite gender. Elsewhere, the so-called Flame King lackey is busy turning on the imprisoned hotties, saying that once they're burned by the flames, they will become as faithful as her. Suddenly, another girl appears, asking her if the king only wanted her to do such ridiculous things. The girls start off by disagreeing and questioning if the other girl will be willing to help her tempt more girls following them in order to awaken the Flame King. Once their master is revived, she will take back her authority from the Dark Artificer. However, that girl mentions that it doesn't matter and reveals herself as Lila, saying that it's more important for Sinew to realize it sooner, as those kinds of men don't deserve to stand by her side. This makes the lackey realize that Lila holds the same feelings for Sinew as well. In the end, the girl figures that they don't really have anything to do with the cult, making them question if they can register their marriage. But she straight up refuses and hands them some books full of laws required for marriage. First of all, they need a house big enough for raising children and show them some houses up for sale. Sinew tells Linz that the price is 30 million runes, asking if it's cheap or expensive. This statement comes as a shock to a brokey like Linz, as in the past, the price was only worth around 200,000 runes, making Sinew realize that they can only buy a bathroom for that price. The girl further mentions that they also need at least an income of 1 million runes annually, and in the end, suggests them taking some jobs as an adventurer and completing missions with large bounties. Once they receive a reward for them, they can take a loan from her to buy a house. Following that, the two of them walk out of the church and Sinew holds Linz's sleeve, asking if it is really that hard for two people to get married. She questions why they need so much money to get married, as it's a matter between the two of them. Sinew concludes that it'll be more effective to make them her followers, as in this case, everyone will bless them. Linz calms her down with a pat on the head, understanding how she felt as the moment Sinew accepted his proposal. The two of them had already become a couple that no one could break up. He then tells Sinew that the difficulties they are facing are not a hindrance to their relationship. The main reason they are in such a situation is because both of them are not from this world. Since Linz is the one saying all these things, Sinew ends up accepting this, but before they leave, Linz makes sure to help all those poor souls she unknowingly tormented while she was furious. Eventually, the two of them visit the guild, where an old man lets them know that they can't register, as the receptionist was abducted by the cult. Hearing this makes Sinew even more furious at the cult, and she decides to eliminate them once and for all. But Linz handles the situation, asking the old man if there is another way, as the guild can't accept their application in the normal way. He compliments Linz for being a sharp young man and says that the other way requires strength. After that, the geezer takes them to the training ground and informs them that they need to pass 2 tests. Sinew questions if she can take the test as well, to which the old man agrees, saying that the first test is for him to attack the crystal. While he is busy explaining, Linz begins preparing his magic spell and strikes the crystal, making it shatter into several pieces. Sinew is amazed by how fast he did it, while the old man is beyond shocked. Linz asks him to skip his boring explanation and start the next test. Sinew tells Linz that she wanted to go first, and he tells her to take the next test first. The old man remembers that the next test includes him testing their combat ability, and notices Sinew showcasing her powers, as she's really excited to take the test. Realizing that he might get absolutely cooked by her, the old man compliments them for their performance and hands them over a silver adventurer certificate, deciding to accept their application. Sinew tries to mention that she hasn't taken the test, but the old man intervenes, saying that he wants to take a picture of them together. However, Sinew can't get over her test, and Linz pats her head yet again, saying that she'll get another chance to perform soon. She then remembers the old fart taking their photo, thinking that it might involve things like kissing. This results in her getting flustered and tying Linz with her tentacles. After he takes the picture, the old man notices Linz tied up by tentacles and questions who they really are. Linz realizes that he needs to clear the old man's memories, while the old man begs for his life, thinking that his time has come. Following that, the two of them roam around the town with some bread in their hands. Lin suggests buying some clothes as it's not enough to buy a house. With that being said, they visit a nearby clothing shop where a girl with melons bigger than her face greets them. He then tells her to pick some clothes as it'll be useful for the task, and realizing that it will somehow help the mission, she decides to wear what an ordinary human girl wears. After half an hour, Sinua shows off her first dress and Lin's mentions that it would look better with a veil. Sinua then asks if she can just head out while wearing this dress, but he asks her to take it off as it's now his time to become a cross-dressing freak. Sinua questions if he really wants to wear these clothes, and soon after, he ends up wearing them. But seeing him cross-dress scares Sinua for life, and she begins to wonder how many strange hobbies can one man have. Linz then tells Sinua to buy more clothes as this disguise is enough for him. Sinua asks him about this disguise he is talking about, and he puts his finger on her mouth, letting her know that it is called honey trap. Following that, Sinua continues to try more clothes, and Linz likes the first one, but Sinua decides to try more and ends up wearing something that barely keeps those two big things under control. After that, she wears a rather freaky-looking dress, and looking at her is enough to give Linz a nosebleed, who realizes how blessed he truly is. That night, the two of them appear at the Will City Street and notice a bunch of cult members walking somewhere. Sinua figures that the one at the front must be the one who abducted the girls, and Linz agrees, wanting to follow them. Sinua then notices a mist around them and mentions that it has a familiar aura. Suddenly, the person at the front mentions that everyone will witness the resurrection of the king and removes her robe, saying that this will lead them to where lilies bloom. Sinua is shocked at how similar she looks to Nea, and informs Linz about it, which makes him wonder if they look alike due to the evil god's authority. Sinua then questions how he came up with a way to sneak in there and asks if it is due to the clothes. Linz agrees, saying that it's thanks to the dress, as everyone who bought clothes from that shop and wore them is invited to the cult. The gray fog will distort the city into two different spaces, and even the shopkeeper might be unaware of it. Linz remembers his friend's advice, who told him to wear women's clothing when in doubt. He then notices his friend's descendants mixed in with the team just like them. Meanwhile, the lackey notices people talking and tells Lila that her charming effect isn't very effective. This results in her getting out of the shadow and deciding to use this spell once again, only to freak out after noticing Sinua among the crowd. At the same time, Sinua also notices her and thinks that she seems familiar. Meanwhile, Lila ducks to hide from Sinua, realizing that if she's discovered, Sinua will punish him in a rather questionable way using her tentacles. That girl questions what's wrong with Lila, and she decides to stand back up, not wanting to give up now, as she wants Sinua to understand that Lila's better for her than those scrawny men. Simultaneously, Sinua figures that she looks like Lila and tells Linz to forget about it and catch up with the others. While Lila is furious at Sinua for hanging out with Linz and not giving her any attention, eventually they all arrive at the church where fireworks start going off, and the lackey tells the statue of Linz's friend that she hindered her master's pursuit of love and should just die. However, she believes that her lord will borrow her magic to be reborn in her appearance. Linz also didn't expect anything else but sacrificing others from the believer of the evil god. Sinua questions if they need to stop them, as the one tied to the cross is probably from the Adventurers Guild. Soon after, the blondie steps up and mentions that this farce has to end. He reveals that he is there to make all their evil deeds meaningless. The lackey didn't expect a big shot like Rhine to be present there, and without hesitating, attacked him with flame magic. However, he easily cuts through her flames using his sword. Sinua mentions how Rhine might be able to deal with the current situation, and finds Linz in shock, who realizes that Rhine surely is the descendant of his friend, as even their women's preferences for clothing are the same. After that, he takes a deep breath and suggests leaving the battlefield to Rhine and saving the people instead. Meanwhile, the lackey laughs at Rhine for thinking that she didn't consider unexpected situations, and lets him know that the fog is created by the power of the fifth evil god. She is confident that the Lord will be revived, and the world will burn. However, Linz uses his magic trick and instantly makes the fog disappear, leaving everyone flabbergasted. After that, all the other cult members lose consciousness as well. The lackey can't believe what happened, and Rhine, not knowing what just happened, realizes that her plan failed and uses his magic to try and strike the depressed girl who has nothing going on for her. Lila tells her to get her act straight, as it'll be all over if she's caught. She then blocks Rhine's attack, which allows the two of them to successfully escape for the time being. Ryan then stares at the elf's thick thighs when suddenly, tentacles begin to emerge from her body. They instantly try to attack Ryan, and he realizes that there is no time for him to respond. Luckily, Linz appears just in time and protects Ryan, while Sinuhe easily manages to slash all those tentacles. Linz asks Ryan if he's injured, but the only thing he is love struck. He sees Linz as a beautiful and noble woman who saved him, and instantly, he falls down to his knees and asks Linz to become his wife. Sinuhe pushes him aside, saying that she won't give Linz to anyone else. This makes Ryan figure that those two are lovebirds, and Linz agrees, telling him that they are husband and wife. Following that, he shows off his peanut to Ryan as a proof of him being a man. This comes as a shock to Ryan, but doesn't change much as he still praises Linz for being a beautiful and noble man. Sinuhe asks Linz if all men propose to someone they just met, but he replies that he really had to propose to her. Meanwhile, Ryan, feeling like a third wheel, asks them to talk after dealing with the situation. After they are done with all the work, Ryan finally understands that they were trying to register their marriage, and then formally introduces himself as a Knight of the Empire and a member of Salvation Society. He then asks if the two of them have heard of time travelers, and they obviously have. Ryan then proudly tells them that he's a descendant of Almighty Lord Z. Linz interrupts, saying that he doesn't need to introduce in such detail as his full name is Linz, and he's the one who founded the Salvation Society. Ryan stares at Linz for a while and then smiles at him, knowing that he's another delusional person. Furthermore, Ryan says that in order for him to give more information, Linz needs to tell him 3 secret words. Sinuhe wonders if it is some kind of joint code, and Ryan replies that it's a unique password only circulated among the members of Salvation Society. The more secret words a member knows, the higher their level within the guild is. He says that if Linz is unable to say those words, he can't tell the whole truth to him. With that being said, Ryan says the first word, which is Blue Demon's Boots, and Linz replies by saying Chelsea. The next word is, I'll give you some instant noodles, and Linz completes it by saying that he won't eat anything but Big Shane noodles. Lastly, Ryan says the last sentence, which is why he can't have a look, and Linz replies that if he looks at it one more time, it'll explode. Ryan then compliments Linz for not only saying those words but also doing those cheeky moves. Sinuhe realizes that no matter what the question or the answer, she can't understand it at all, and decides to write them down for the time being. She then asks Linz about the rules for setting these secret words, wondering if they represent the knowledge of the traveler's original civilization. But he replies that it's just a bad joke from the era of time travelers. He then makes Ryan piss off and holds Sinuhe's hands, saying that he can teach her all those magical words later. Now that Linz has said all those words, Ryan agrees to share the information and tells them that the 5th evil god disappeared from the forest some time ago, and currently the Burning Order cult began their activities. It is currently unknown what the relationship between the two is, and he is one of the people investigating it. Following that, he asks the two of them for assistance regarding the investigation, promising a reward, and the 2 homeless freaks instantly secure the deal. After they are done talking, Maria appears, thanking Sinuhe and Linz for fighting the cult and deciding to arrange a wedding ceremony for these two. Furthermore, she asks them to collect the bounty so they can go buy a house. On their way back, Sinuhe mentions how easy it is to make money when suddenly Naya appears and restricts Linz's movements along with everyone present nearby, stopping time of everyone tied up with her threads. She then asks Sinuhe to talk about the War of the Evil Gods. However, Sinuhe doesn't like Naya trapping her husband when surprisingly, Linz pats her head, telling her that it's not that easy to trap him. Followed by the two of them starting their cringy couple talk until Naya intervenes, asking Linz how he broke free from her bounds. Linz replies that the same trick doesn't work twice as he has already fought her before. Naya then lets them know that she wants to hand over her authority to Linz and Sinuhe, and ultimately withdraw from the war. This comes as a shock to both of them, and Naya elaborates, saying that each of them will take half and share her authority, but she is not willing to give it for free. The thing she wants in return is for them to seek her out as their real estate consultant. Both Linz and Sinuhe find it hard to comprehend what she just said, and Naya continues, mentioning that she has not sold a single house for almost half a year. If it stays the same, her grouchy boss will eventually fire her. Sinuhe can't believe that the Lord of Monsters stopped space-time of the city just to try and sell a house. But Naya replies, telling Sinuhe that she doesn't understand the pain of unemployment as she, who entered the human world before Sinuhe, has had profound experience. At the start, she slept under a bridge, fought with stray dogs for leftovers, and spent a considerable amount of time in a wandering and scavenging life. Hearing this story makes the two of them understand the pain she went through. Sadly, she didn't even have a choice as being the Lord of Monsters. She can't possibly hunt and eliminate monsters as an adventurer. In the end, she asks them to think about her offer, as she doesn't want to return to a life of poverty. For the time being, she gives them her business card, and 2 hours later, the two of them appear in front of a pretty luxurious house, and Sinua mentions how Nea really did give them 1/4 her authority. Linz says that half of it was stolen by the Fire Order, which they need to recover themselves. Furthermore, Sinua is surprised how Linz can accommodate the authorities of Evil God easily, and he lets her know that in the past he had conflicts with many other evil gods. Additionally, if the authority were to fall into wrong hands, it'll lead to chaos and disaster. With that being said, they decide to take a look at their new house, and after entering the bedroom, Sinua stares at the bed. She will be breaking later that night. She then notices that Nea's authority doesn't seem right, as it will bring her original form. Just then, she tries Linz's hand and jumps on top of him, wanting to put those peaches to work. Outside the house, Nea is standing on her own, thinking how easy it was to succeed. Her plan from the beginning was to guide Sinua back to her original form. Meanwhile, Sinua is too hot and bothered to think straight and begins licking Linz's neck. Elsewhere, Lila realizes that it's Sinua's instinctive day and figures that she is in danger, as she is currently with the Perv Lord himself. The lackey questions what's wrong with Lila, and she opens a portal, replying that she needs to go to Sinua immediately. But as soon as she arrives outside the mansion, Nea ties her with her strings, letting Lila know that she is not allowed to cause trouble. Nea lets her know that she distributed her authority with the two of them, and they quickly absorb it, as it's dangerous to leave the authority outside. This will allow the authorities to stimulate Sinua, causing her mother's goddess instinct to amplify. Additionally, the lens will also be swallowed by Sinua and reborn. Lila can't believe that Nea is thinking of such a prophecy, but Nea is confident that it'll come true. On the other hand, Sinua tells Linz that she will give birth to him again and again, no matter how many times, and he replies that he wants a connection between husband and wife, nothing else. However, Sinua is set on making Linz enter his body, mentioning how warm it is. She further says that because of Linz, everything has been burned, and if she gives birth to him, they won't just be husband and wife. Linz figures that Sinua has completely entered the freaky zone, know that her original form has a tendency to collect things into the mother goddess's womb and give birth again. Once he has enough of this bullshit, Sinua grabs her tentacles and uses his powers, letting Sinua know that it might be a little rough. He then ties her up with chains, but at the same time, being so close to an evil god makes his heart ache. For the time being, he hangs the poor girl like meat hanging at the butcher shop. Outside, Nea figures that they must have done the deed, and when Lila asks her purpose for doing all of this, she replies that it is so Linz can be born like a child of her in Sinua. Just then, Linz appears behind Nea, questioning her if she wants to take Sinua away from her. Linz further questions if Nea wants to make babies with Sinua, to which she replies that selling in the house is still more important to her. Lila interrupts, asking Linz what he did to Sinua, as the primal instant state couldn't have ended so quickly. Linz lets her know that he just put her to sleep, making her realize that he might be more dangerous than she initially thought. He then asks Lila if she's Sinua's companion and wonders if she can take care of Sinua for him. Whereas he tells Nea that the two of them need to have a serious conversation and takes her back to his luxurious graveyard. He then tells her to confess her intentions before the sand runs out and starts off by tying Nea using his chains in a rather questionable pose. However, she couldn't care less about people sneaking a peek of her underwear, and he just hopes that they can work well together. Nea then asks Linz about what he wants to do with the time travelers, and he replies that he wishes to revive them and take them home. Elsewhere, Lila is present next to Sinua, who is asleep. She starts off by putting a drenched cloth on her forehead, realizing that without Linz's help, everyone in the city could have been reborn by Sinua. This makes her wonder if he tried popping Sinua's cherry earlier, and decides to take a look by lifting the cover. Realizing that she must not be wearing anything, Lila instantly takes off the blanket, revealing those ginormous jugs. She then takes a closer look at Sinua's lips, which sort of turn her on, and she decides to give her a quick kiss when suddenly Linz appears. Lila gets surprised and instantly backs off, questioning how he came back so quickly. Furthermore, she asks him about Nea, to which he replies that he took care of her. He then wipes blood off his hands, saying that there is no fifth dark god in this world. This statement comes as a shock to Lila, who figures that Nea might have been eliminated by Linz. She concludes that it must be his goal to eliminate all the dark gods and start to panic. Meanwhile, Linz notices that Sinua is starting to recover and asks Lila to continue taking care of Sinua for the time being, as he needs to take a shower. Elsewhere, Nea gets out of a portal and seems glad that she still has some time to spare. Thankfully, she can still make it to the afternoon meeting, as if she's late, her hard-earned bonus will also go down the drain. Simultaneously, Linz is taking a bath, thinking about how the Dark Weaver is gone and that the other half should also recover from the burning fire cult. Additionally, his heart itch has also eased, which can allow him to continue according to his plan. Just then, the bathroom door slams open and Lila appears, wanting to have a talk with Linz. She walks towards him and questions why he's trying to get close to Sinua, as she can't allow him to stay by her side without knowing his true intentions. Linz smiles at her and stands up, revealing his sad excuse of a sausage. He then gets out of the bathtub and begins walking towards Lila, while she desperately tells him to keep that tiny disgusting thing away from her. Eventually, she locks in and grabs his neck, followed by her pointing a knife at his throat, asking if he's serious about wanting to hurt Sinua. But he advises Lila to be more resolute, as she wants to protect her at all costs. Following that, he mentions that he and Sinua knew each other before the meeting, as he used to receive letters from someone named Sabu. At first, Lila doesn't believe the crap he is talking about, but after focusing on the name Sabu, she asks if Sinua's pen pal was him. Surprisingly, Linz agrees, which makes her frustrated, and Lila mentions that Sinua used to write letters to someone who wrote a young girl's manga. Linz once again agrees, saying that she used to write to Lena, which is his pen name. This results in Lila choking the undressed guy, confronting him for discontinuing the series. As she tells him how long they used to wait for updates, the bathroom door opens and Sinua steps in, finding Lila on top of her naked husband. Lila begins to panic and thinks that Sinua might smoke her for good. However, her reaction is quite the opposite, but Lila still tries to tell her that it's not as she thinks. Luckily, Linz asks Lila to let him explain and asks Sinua to hold his hand while his peanut is still exposed. Sinua ends up holding his hands and he shares his powers with her, allowing Sinua to experience everything that happened when she wasn't present, making her let out a sigh of relief. Following that, Sinua asks Lila to go outside while she has some fun with Linz, and Lila hesitantly agrees. After leaving the bathroom, Lila begins to wonder if Sinua will still blame her, and after a moment of silence, remembers her plan of sabotaging Linz's and Sinua's relationship. She then tries to open the door, but Linz makes sure to lock it. Inside, Sinua ends up stripping as well, and they both talk about dealing with the Flame King. Following that, she joins Linz in the bath, wondering if the other evil gods will experience a similar situation to Nea's. As for the world, dark gods like her are similar to ticking bombs. Elsewhere, the loner emo is enjoying dinner on his own when the Grand Elder suddenly FaceTime him. Apparently, he wants to talk about the dark gods and mentions that they received a revelation from Lord Z. Ryan mentions how Lord Z has been out of touch for millions of years. The Grand Elder reveals that Lord Z once fought a battle with dark gods that could have taken his life, and Ryan questions if Lord Z has been reborn and has given them a new revelation. This reminds him of Linz, but he figures that a dimwit like him can't be Lord Z. Grand Elder then mentions that Lord Z told them about the dark god's second anomaly. Apparently, after the death of the great creator, his blood became tainted, and then the gods were tainted by his divine blood, which was the first anomaly. This resulted in many time travelers fighting the dark gods to fix the calamities caused by them until they went dormant, and the first anomaly passed peacefully. However, the anomaly didn't end, as the dark gods still exist. Furthermore, he tells Ryan that Nea severed her authority that he is investigating, called the Flame King. Somehow, she created an even twisted dark god by maintaining her own purity, which is the Flame King. Turns out Nea has to completely abandon her authority in order to keep her own consciousness. Ultimately, she decided to hand over her remaining authority to Lord Z. But this is not all, as other dark gods are like bombs, as their authorities become corrupt over time. When all the Dark Lords lose their consciousness and go berserk, that is when the second anomaly appears. Lastly, he tells Ryan that their mission is to assist Lord Z in making sure that this doesn't happen. Meanwhile, Sinua tells Linz that they can't leave the burning fire cult unchecked, but Linz reassures her that he has already made arrangements. He then gets close to Sinua and grabs her face, asking her to continue what they left off earlier. Sinua, flustered, asks about what he wants to continue, and he whispers into her ear about wanting to break their king-sized bed. This results in her freaking out and refusing to do such things in the bathtub, which makes Linz question if she didn't think this through before getting into the bathtub. He then begins teasing her for feeling shy now that she realizes it, which causes Sinua to explode and throw him out of the bathroom, forcing Lilla to check up on his pervy. Elsewhere, the elf tells the geezer that she will be visiting her lifesaver when she turns around and notices Naya, who she mistakes for the lackey. But Naya reassures her that she is not the same person and shows them her business card, wanting to register as an adventurer. After taking a good look at it, the elf agrees and asks Naya to come to the front desk. The oldie suddenly realizes that her work in real estate must keep her quite busy, but according to Naya, they already fired her for being so incompetent. He then questions her reason behind wanting to become an adventurer, and Naya replies that a friend recommended it to her. This makes the elf ask the geezer to let her assist Naya, and he agrees, saying that there is no need to test her. Following that, Naya asks if she can avoid hunting monsters, to which the elf agrees. Meanwhile, the old fart notices that the mana intensity inside Naya is truly astonishing, reminding him of Sinua and Linz, making him wonder why such people have been registering lately. On the other hand, Sinua and Linz are having dinner with Lilla, as she is their first guest, but just when she is about to dig in, Linz stops her midway, asking if she was helping the cult when he and Sinua were tracking them. Lilla knows that she'd be in trouble if she admits it, and says that Sinua would recognize her if she was with them. She hopes that the mother goddess will be the one to help her out, but Sinua ends up selling her out. Lilla then lets them know that it was dark at the time and Sinua, I could have made a mistake. Linz replies by asking Lilla to proactively get in touch with the cult and assist them to help Sinua, and out with a simple task, to which she agrees. This makes Sinua wonder why Lilla is not admitting it when she seems afraid of Linz. Just then, someone knocks on the door, and Linz decides to go and open the door for the guests. Outside, the elf and Naya are present, who seem to have mixed feelings about this visit. Soon after, Linz opens the door and the elf introduces herself as Eveline, wanting to give him a cake as a token of gratitude, while Naya decides not to introduce herself this time. Following that, he invites the two of them inside, and Naya asks Eveline to go ahead while she smokes a cigarette. Suddenly, Eveline notices Lilla and gets shocked, failing to figure out what she is doing with her savior. Before Lilla can even calm her down, Eveline informs everything about what Lilla did to her, along with her being an accomplice of the Fire Order Bishop. This forces Lilla to admit to her wrongdoings, telling them that she didn't want to give Sinua to someone like Linz, and did all this to make Sinua fall for her instead. After that, Lilla asks them to hurry up and eliminate her, just like he eliminated Naya, but Linz lets him know that by taking care of Naya, he meant solving the issue with her authority. However, she still insists on him of eliminating her, as she no longer has the face to meet the goddess mother. But Sinua ends up hugging Lilla, saying that she's her best companion and lets her feel those giant honkers. Eveline's savior talking about Lilla being her companion makes her even more confused, but just then, Linz intervenes, wanting to move to the main topic of discussion. The next day, Lilla pays the lackey a visit, who tells Lilla a new way of awakening their master, and Lilla congratulates her, but also mentions how she might not be able to recover if humans find her again, suggesting she joins Lilla in a meeting with Sinua and let her fulfill his desires. The lackey, or some might say Bishop, asks if Sinua is willing to assist in awakening the Flame King, and Lilla replies by telling her that it's not impossible, as Sinua has already captured the Dark Weaver and also has the other half of authority. This makes the bishop ask Lilla her demands, and Lilla lets her know that she wants submission. That night, the bishop pays Sinua a visit and tells Naya that her face brings back memories, and Naya asks her to look at herself in the mirror, as she is her duplicate. This results in both of them getting annoyed at each other until Sinua intervenes. Eventually, the bishop introduces herself to Sinua, and Sinua asks her to speak of her desires. Meanwhile, Ryan and Linz are hiding afar, stalking the ladies. Ryan mentions how Linz's wife has the aura of an evil god, and Linz agrees. He then asks him about Lilla, as he remembers her from the cult, but Linz makes up an excuse of her being a companion of his wife. At the same time, Sinuit shows the bishop that she has also brought the elf for her, and all she wants in return is her loyalty. She asks the bishop to become Nea's companion after the Flame King is resurrected. The bishop replies that she is willing to do it in order to revive her master. This results in Sinua asking Naya to give her the contract, and she accidentally hands her the house purchase intention letter. Realizing her mistake, Naya quickly takes it back and gives her the correct one. Eventually, the bishop signs the contract, and after she is done, Sinua asks her to begin her summoning ritual. With that being said, the bishop steps close to Eveline, saying that she will fulfill her master's long-cherished wish. Rhine, seeing how the contract has been signed, asks Linz to close the net, but he tells him not to rush ahead. Rhine lets him know that the evil god will truly be summoned, and Linz replies that he intends for that to happen. However, Rhine confronts him for being greedy, as that evil god will surely beat their ass. Elsewhere, Sinua wonders if summoning with Naya's authority to make it faster was a bit hasty, and Linz tells Rhine not to be worried, as he can easily deal with a half-baked evil god. The bishop then begins saying the incantations for the summoning ceremony, which makes a giant fireball appear in the sky. She then yells the name of the Flame King Kodja, which results in a being emerging from the fireball. Sadly, the Flame King appears to be a pathetic cattle bull, and Rhine asks what they should do. Linz tells him that he will be taking care of that angry bull, and asks her to oversee the reward distribution, and make sure that Naya gets some dough as well. Meanwhile, Kodja walks towards Sinua, and mentions how he never thought she would assist his revival. Sinua replies that he will soon find out the reason behind her assistance. Following that, he compliments the bishop for all the work she has done and likes her using the elf as a sacrifice with his new and even uglier face. The bishop says that she is willing to offer her life as well, and Kodja promises to reward her after he inhabit the elf's body. However, she asks him to let Eveline go and blames herself for not being able to bring him the vessel of Estia. Naya questions if she is thinking of becoming a vessel herself and reminds the bishop of their contract. Kodja questions Naya if she can still have companions now that her authority is seized, and Linz lets him know that he is about to be seized as well. He then greets Kodja, calling him a little calf, which comes as a surprise to him. Sinua finally informs him that Linz is actually her husband, causing Kodja to make the blandest face he can. Linz then says that their chit-chat time is about to end and makes a magic circle, telling Sinua that he will be back soon. The magic circle teleports not only him but also Kodja and Naya to his temple. She mentions that his temple is quite similar to dwelling of the evil gods, and Kodja says that he can't believe a pest like Linz is still alive. Linz mentions that 903 million years ago, Estia was eliminated by Kodja, and he blames Estia for friend zoning him. This reminds Linz that Estia and Naya once encountered each other in the forest, and being unaware of each other's identities, they became good friends. Kodja witnessed the two of them derive great satisfaction from their interaction. Sadly, they distanced themselves from each other after finding each other's identity. But Kodja didn't want it to end and hoped to replace Estia, acquire her body, and continue being close to Naya. This makes Linz question if this can even be called courtship. Following that, he questions Kodja if he dares to fight with Estia again, and Kodja replies that she passed away a long time ago, and even if he were to resurrect Estia, she couldn't possibly fight a deity like him. He then tells Linz to stop yapping and fight him, saying that after slaying Linz, he will create a divine country where lilies bloom. Surprisingly, Linz lets him know that Estia isn't dead, as her prowess remains intact. He wasn't busy getting freaky while evil gods were lurking, and worked 37 years deducing Estia's magic to its utmost. After she stands next to him, Linz says that Kodja isn't a match for her. He then gives Estia his spear, and she gladly takes it, thanking Linz. Eventually, she takes off her blindfold and reveals her bright red eyes, saying that she got a chance to fight on the battlefield again. Naya asks Linz if this is her true character, and he replies that her personality switches after taking off the blindfold. Estia then stares right into Kodja's soul, questioning if he killed her. Kodja blames her for rejecting him and tries attacking, but Estia makes a magic circle appear and block the attack. Kodja then makes several fireballs appear from the ground and attacks Estia using all of them, thinking that this is enough to take care of her. But his facial expression changes real soon after he notices Estia standing there unscratched, mentioning how this fire didn't even burn her clothes. Naya thinks about travelers having weapons given to them by world's rulers, and their strength can even eliminate an evil god, but most of them don't get the chance to grow to that state due to their lifespan. Linz then asks her to pay attention to Estia's abilities. It turns out Estia can redirect the attacks of her enemies and compresses the sun into a fireball spell. Without wasting any time, she fires it towards Koja, followed by her piercing his body using her spear. Koja can't comprehend how Estia got so strong, but she doesn't rest and makes the fireball explode, causing a massive explosion and putting an end to Koja. She then asks Linz to retrieve the authority and buries him in her ginormous jugs. Nea notices Linz having a great time and decides to record this scene in her memory to later show it to Sinua. After that, Linz asks Estia if she's ready, and when she agrees, he puts his hand forward, warning her that it might hurt, and shoves his hand inside her chest. He then begins saying some incantation which makes the chains of foreign god manifest. Nea knows that the chains are remnants of deceased creators, wondering if it is the cure of the travelers. Currently, Linz is trying to lift that curse off of Estia and ends up breaking the chain using his hand, allowing Estia to make a soft landing thanks to her peaches. She then informs Linz that it's a success, and he asks if she can see the way home. Estia then looks at the sky and begins tearing up as she can clearly see the room she used to live in along with a picture of her with her parents. Back at home, Lilla mentions that Linz has not returned home for 3 days, and Sinua reassures her that she can sense him at the temple. Her current plan is to prepare something delicious for Linz, and Lilla realizes that she might need to call Gordon Ramsay on her, considering many people have lost their lives after eating her food. Figuring that they might not like it, Sinua decides to use some other super rare ingredients when she notices someone's arrival and witnesses those huge things in front of her. Estia instantly buries Sinua in her melons and mentions how adorable Sinua truly is. Linz then asks her to stop teasing Sinua and decides to formally introduce them. He starts off by introducing Sinua as his wife and Estia as a traveler and creator of Covenant Church. He further informs Sinua that Estia will be staying at their house until they hold the wedding. But wedding isn't the only thing, as Estia plans to teach her about love and wants to guide her until he is able to slip it in. Furthermore, she plans to eliminate any obstacles that might hinder her progress. With that being said, she reveals all the videos she managed to download from the hub. The next morning, it is time for their first lesson, and Estia decides to skip the theory part and wants to get straight to the point. When Sinua asks her about the topic of the day, Estia calls Nea, who makes the bishop and Lilla drag a bed into the room. Estia thanks them for their hard work and tells Sinua that the topic is getting into bed and learning every position. Sinua, I can't believe the things coming out of her mouth, and to start things off, Estia grabs Nea and buries her into her chest. However, Sinua still wants to study theory, but Linz appears, revealing his inner nerd, telling Sinua that it might be better for them to just watch. Sinua agrees and decides to join the nerd army, ready to watch some live action. Linz notices that Estia doesn't feel any pain being close to evil gods after her curse is gone, and Sinua wonders what Linz is thinking about. He replies that he's feeling nostalgic as Estia did something similar when the church was established. After that, Estia decides to switch positions and move to the top and asks them to pay attention to her movements. She starts off by biting Nea's ear, but Nea couldn't care less, and when asked by Estia to cooperate, she begins acting as if she's enjoying it. However, both the nerds are engrossed in their studies, and Sinua figures that biting the ear makes people feel comfortable. Hearing this makes Lilla realize that Sinua might learn some weird things and notices Estia already at the main part of the deed, making her wonder how she gets to this point so quickly. Additionally, she knows Sinua is serious about learning and wants to avoid Sinua being alone with Linz at night. When it's time for bed, Lilla ends up lying between the two of them, wanting to give Sinua a report. But when Sinua asks her to talk about it tomorrow, Lilla insists that today's work needs to be completed today. Just then, Estia appears in the room, grabs Lilla's arm, telling her that she's scared on her own, and takes her away, telling the two of them to remember what she taught them. Do you think the two of them will be able to handle the rest of Estia's lessons? Comment Immortal if you'd like a part 2 of this series. As usual, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.